So I think the biggest thing that I had to overcome was actually listening to myself and trusting my own intuition. And because it was fun being in charge of myself to an extent, but I was, I kept wanting somebody to tell me what to do. And especially in the beginning, I was just like, I needed that. And the structure too, because I was free to do anything. I could do anything I wanted. So I think, finally I found a healthy balance, but it took a lot of trial and error. And thankfully I'm at where I'm at. But highly suggest going to therapy because I didn't even learn about religious trauma and all of this until just recently, just a few years ago. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I feel like I've gone through this for a reason to help other people. And I'm grateful that I'm at a place where I'm at where I can, because there's a lot of people that are probably just like me without no way of reaching to the outside world. Like, who's going to help them? And so I do feel like people who have gone through what we've gone through, like we're doing what we know we need to do to help other people, to help spread awareness even about what religious trauma is and how they can get out of whatever situations and just be a support for them.
Welcome to Awaken to Freedom. I'm your host, Jada. This podcast is all about finding your freedom after leaving abusive environments, whether that's a cult, a toxic relationship, or a high control religion. Each week, we interview brave women who have escaped these controlling situations, discovered their voice, and gone on to lead incredible lives. Their stories are inspiring and offer encouragement to anyone listening that there is a way out and there is a light at the end of the tunnel. If you're a woman who would like to share her story and be a guest on this podcast, please visit awakentofreedom.ca. Join us every week for a new story of courage and hope. If you'd like to see our faces, please head over to the YouTube channel and don't forget to like and subscribe. Feel free to engage with the comments because that helps the algorithm and allows more people to view our content. So with that, let's get started. Welcome to Awaken to Freedom. Thank you so much for joining us today. Our special guest is Annika. So welcome to the podcast, Annika.
Thank you so much, Jada. Thank you for having me. I'm glad we were able to connect and for me to be able to tell my story to hopefully help other people if they're going, say, through something or trying to get out of whatever oppressive religion they're in. I'm hoping this podcast will really help them. So thank you for having me.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, and I'm sure it absolutely will help our listeners because you were involved with the Pentecostal religion. Is that correct?
Yes. So I was actually born into it. My dad was born into it. So it's kind of like runs in the family. I'm not sure how far it goes back or whatever, but I was born into it. It was all I knew for the first 18 years of my life. And I don't know how much you know of the Pentecostal religion, but the church that I was born and raised in was very high control, if you want to say. And so you basically get told what to wear, what to think, what to believe, etc. And not really allowed to ask any questions outside of the box or and there's always an explanation of why they believe the way they did. But most of them was like, oh, you just need to have faith that this is the right way and this is the only way to heaven.
I totally hear you on that one. That sounds very much like, because I'm an ex-JW, ex-Jehovah's Witness, and it sounds very similar. It was so close to the same type of strictness that we were. There was a lot of similarities. We didn't have the music that I think that some of the churches had, but I think a lot of the strictness and the dress codes and things like that were very similar. So tell us what it was like for you growing up in that.
Well, I think from a young age, I kind of knew I didn't want to be in it because I would see we weren't allowed to have friends outside the church or like have communications outside the church. But, you go to the grocery store and you would see people being a little bit more carefree with their lives. And growing up, they taught from the Bible, but there was a lot of fear that was intertwined in sermons and a lot of yelling and a lot of humiliation towards the people. So growing up, it was just more or less, you don't want to be seen or heard because, you don't want any eyes on you. Because typically if eyes are on you, it's in a negative light. So for me as a young child, I was just like, I wanted to disappear into, the wall and just be like, not seen, not heard. And it's taken a lot of trying to undo a lot of the learning since I've left. But growing up into it, more or less, you just wanted to make sure you're doing everything right. But it also caused you to second guess, your intuition and always second guess what you're doing. That was a big thing, is like, oh, am I doing things right? Am I doing things right? Am I right with God? Am I following the rules okay? Down to how many inches your shirt's supposed to be past your collarbone. Like, it was that strict. It was crazy. So, but I think it did take that level of, extreme, I would say, oppression to come out the other side and just appreciate how we're able to self-express and the freedom that we do have.
So with the Pentecostal religion, are they kind of oppressive towards women like a lot of religions are, right? It's very patriarchal. Is that kind of similar with them, or I don't really know a lot
Yes.
about Pentecostals.
It was
Yeah.
very patriarchal. To the point where women were instructed not to be looking men in the eyes. Our eyes were to be downcast. And again, I can only speak from my experience and my
Right.
church, but they did, brag about, how they're one of the most holy churches, and it was just extreme. And at one point, even, I know I'm segueing a little bit, the pastor got up, read the definition of what a cult was, and goes, "Well, if we're a cult, so be it."
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, no question there.
So I'm like, okay, well, I can freely call it a cult without even hurting anyone's feeling, because they also believe they were a cult. So, but there
Okay.
was a ton of patriarchal undertones. The man's the head of the household. The women were to serve the men were to serve God, the children were to be under the parents. And it's, you know, to me personally, that kind of upbringing, I would go into my actual relationships as an adult and then be very unfulfilled, very unhappy, because I'm like, this is what I don't want. But, I'm slipping into these patterns because that's what's comfortable or familiar. When personally, I'm very goal oriented and I like traveling, I like careers and stuff, but that stuff was frowned upon for
Mm.
especially women. Yeah.
That was my next question. Were you allowed to have a higher education, or was it basically like grade 12 and that's it?
We, we had a private school. So,
Oh,
yeah.
really?
Yeah.
Oh, so all
It
you and
was
your church had to go to your same school?
mostly,
Or
yes. There was a few parents who couldn't afford the tuition that would send their kids to public school, and they'd be put in a different class, I guess, treated differently. The people who go to the private school, the Christian school, or whatever they called it, which was where I would say most of the abuse happened. And I'm not going to
Mm.
go into too much detail, but it wasn't great. Um, but then you'd have the class. So literally all I knew was Christian school, church every single day, day in and day out. And so, if it was affordable for people, some of the girls would go to college, but they weren't allowed to leave their houses until they were married. So they couldn't move
Mm.
out and be on their own until they were married.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what age did you finally leave?
As soon as I was 18. But it took
Okay,
some
so
work.
right. So that sounds like you knew for a while that you didn't want this to be part of your life.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I
was
mean,
it the restrictions, or what was it that kind of was like, this isn't for me?
it was all of it. But from my experience, it was high emotion, high theatrics, high control. And then when I was when I was 16, I actually started going to the gym and working out. And I met a friend there who was outside the church. And I was like, he's like, "Oh, why don't you go do Zumba?" I was like, "I'm not allowed to dance." And he's like, "You're not allowed to dance? That's weird." I was like, "That's weird?" Because I was so used to not being able to do anything. And then that's when I started really thinking for myself and questioning things of like, is dancing actually bad? Is Zumba actually a bad thing to be doing? And mind you, I'm going to the gym in skirts mid calf, long sleeves. I look hilarious, but that's my little escape. And that's when I was like, okay. And and then the abuse was happening at this simultaneously. And that's when I knew I needed to get out. And that's when I had planned um, leaving as soon as I was 18. I was like, I'm done, because it was personally happening to me. And so when I was 18, so grateful for my grandma. My sister had left already. She's 6 years older than me. So she left, she moved out, had her own place. I went over to her place, signed up for an email account, started emailing and texting my grandma from her phone and being like, "Grandma, I want to get out of this." Because my grandma is on my mom's side, wasn't involved in the church and she wasn't a fan. And so I was able to, I wrote my parents a note. I was like, I still believe in God, but you can have a happy daughter, or you can have a dead daughter. And this is what I need to do. So I wrote them a note. I packed up my stuff. I called my grandma, and my grandma moved me out, actually, while they were at work. And the rest is history. I've never gone back. And I'm so great. And honestly, without my sister and without those, being able to have the email communication, because we weren't allowed all of that. Without all of that, I don't know where I'd be. So I'm very grateful to the people who helped me.
Right. And, I always try to reiterate that when with this podcast is that getting yourself someone who you can trust, like finding someone you
Mhm.
can trust to help you escape and get out of there, you need that person. You need
Yeah.
someone to help you, right?
Yeah.
So with your parents, what happened? Were they like, we're not talking to you again? Or were they like, okay, we understand? What was the
So they were
situation there?
distraught. They were really distraught. My mom's crying. They actually ended up um, grabbing me off the street, taking me to the pastor's office so he can pray over me. And I'm just sitting there like, dude, I've made my decision. I'm gone or whatever. I think the most thing that they were distraught about was me moving out without them knowing, because surprise, but like I had to for, my sake or whatever. And then this is going to sound hilarious, Jada, but shortly after I left, they were gone. They left too.
No. Oh,
Yes.
wow.
I'm like, what? All
Wow.
of this. So yeah, my dad left, and then my mom was like, well, I'm all alone in this religion, so I may as well leave. And my mom hasn't been back, and my dad goes to a different Pentecostal church, but he's like, I don't know, kind of in and out. So it's been interesting.
Well, that's a really great thing that you had them follow you because that doesn't happen very often,
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
think. I mean, in the religion that I was in, my family is still all there. I'm the only one that left. So for
Wow.
basically close to 30 years, I've had very minimal contact with my parents who actually have both deceased now. It's a huge shunning situation with
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
organization. Right?
Yeah.
So how great is it that your parents followed you?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's
And it
awesome.
wasn't a complete shunning for us. It was very much discouraged to talk to your children because they wanted the children to feel isolated and alone, to come back home to or whatever. And I think the biggest part for me was growing up in such, like, the hardest part I would say for me was growing up in this environment, immediately changing environments, not having one person that I knew to talk to, because even though my
Mhm.
parents left, they still had a church mindset when it came to a lot of things. And they've had growth since then, but they definitely had their own issues that they were working through or whatever. So I entered the world not knowing a soul, and continued to learn things the hard way over and over until I finally caught on a little bit to how the world works and how people work. And surprisingly, I thought everyone that was sinners were like terrible and awful. And I've met some of the most amazing sinners of my life. So so
Isn't that the truth, right? Yep.
it's hilarious. And then for a while I've also, I was gained this perspective that Christians were bad people because of how I was raised. And then I met some Christians who weren't bad people. And I was like, so which one's like, and then it gets confusing for me.
I think it's just like that was the same as us too. We were told that everybody outside of our organization is horrible and they're just horrible, horrible people. Everybody's going to try and
Mhm.
destroy you and be evil towards you, and they're all going to be killed. Like they're all going to be killed except for the JWs. So when you realize how many wonderful people there are out there, there's a lot that aren't too, but there's a lot that are amazing in every aspect, in every religion, in every non-religion. There's great people everywhere. Right?
Exactly.
If you're putting out the good energy, you're going to attract them. I know you said you didn't want to talk too much about this, so we don't have to go very deep for sure. But you did talk about some abuse. Was that inside your school that was happening?
Yeah. So, well, here's the thing. They encourage spanking. a lot of
Mm,
the spanking that parents, and this is even separate from what I experienced, but you would see parents spanking their kids and they would get praise and admiration for literally beating their children. And a lot for me personally, I was, one of those quiet, good kids. I was just scared because I had secondhand trauma because these kids who would act out, or even these people, these adults too, would get made an example of. And even if you go into like the science-backed research of monkeys and other animals getting made example of, the other animals start to behave in the way that the person who is abusing the animal, if that
right.
makes sense.
Yeah.
So it was heartbreaking to witness as a young child and, experience. But a lot of the abuse did happen in the school. There was the way they had detention set up was it was a 2-hour maximum at the end of the week, and you had to stand and face the wall, no moving. You can't move, you can't go to the restroom, you can't do anything. Um, and when and I'm like 16 years old experiencing this, and it's not for that I did anything wrong. I was actually having trouble learning, and it was causing me to get behind in school. And then I'd have a hard time asking for help because, then in turn you get in more trouble and more behind and blah. It was perpetuating. And I guess I will go into it since I'm already here. So
Only what you're
I'm,
comfortable with.
it's fine. It's fine because it's my truth and I'm okay speaking and I don't have the pain attached to it anymore. But um, one instance was when I was standing facing a wall for 2 hours. In the middle of that time, I ended up passing out. Um, yeah, because of whatever lack of blood circulation. I don't have a good answer for why, but the supervisor there was like, "Are you okay? Help me get up," and then had me continue my time. They told the pastor, and I don't know what happened from there, but nobody came to help me. Nobody came to check on me other than the guy telling me to get up and finish my time. And then, furthermore, people found out about it, and they made a school skit and incorporated it into the school skit, and everyone was like laughing. And I'm like, do you not realize like what that actually was? Yeah, it was crazy. And then I would say the other thing that was really difficult, and it was mostly like them trying to like push guilt upon you, but every year we had a 3-day fast. And so young children were scared of going to hell if they don't finish this fast. So they wouldn't eat for a few days. And we were allowed to drink water. And we had one 4-day, which was torture. I don't fast anymore, by the way, because that wasn't so much fun. But like, that was another thing is just like, there's so much fear of hell. So we would do these extreme things. So we're not getting in trouble. So, and then, just abuse would happen and it would continue and the cycle would continue. And thankfully I was able to step away and pull away and like look at it and see it for what it was. It wasn't spiritual, it wasn't God or anything. It was abuse that people were just putting upon other people. So it's very
Wow.
authoritative. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Oh my goodness. I can't even imagine that. Like passing out and then just being so cavalier about it. Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Yeah. And it
crazy.
happened too in church because we were fasting. So, and maybe I just pass out randomly, but it happened a second time when we were on a 3-day fast. And it was at the very end, everyone's standing in church, and I felt myself black out because I hadn't eaten in 3 days. And they're gathering around praying for me, but no one actually told anyone that, like, hey, maybe she needs some medical help. Nobody called anyone for some medical help. So I'm over here passed out. And it's unfortunate. I think the scariest part of, growing up the way I did was the school and how extreme it was. Like, there's a child that whenever he would get in trouble, he would start vomiting because he was so scared. And like, and then they named him Ralph. And I'm like, you just, like, you're literally, I know. And so the witness of it and the experience of it, it wasn't so great.
And you got to wonder if the parents knew about this. Like, I mean, you'd see Christian schools all over the place, right? I mean, I'm sure there are
Mhm.
different levels of strictness. Maybe things have changed now, like with the corporal punishment. Maybe there isn't as much of that, do you think? Or do you think it's still going strong in there?
I want to say it's not, but I don't know. I haven't been back.
Yeah, right?
So I moved
Yeah,
to a
so
different town. I have
could you
not been
know?
back.
I hear you. I thought anybody could send their kids to Christian school, but is that not a thing?
The way
Because
this
I know you
was,
can send
only
it
the
any
peop
kid can go to Catholic school, right? So
this school in particular, only the members of the church were allowed to be in
oh,
the
okay.
school. Yeah,
Okay.
and I know they were accredited in some manner because every year we would have some superintendent from so and so place, I don't even know, come in and inspect things. But
Mm.
oh, and we had to sign a paper at the beginning of the year saying that we give permission for them to spank us if we deserved it. Yeah.
Oh my word. And so
Yeah,
when they
it's
spank
crazy.
you, were they using a hand? Were they using a wooden spoon or a belt or what was the tool?
Thankfully, I never got spanked, so I have no
Mm,
idea, but there was one
okay.
kid who got spanked often. I never asked him about it, but yeah.
So when you got out of the religion and the school, what type of things did you have to overcome in order to get your life back on track? Like, did you go to therapy? Did you seek counseling? Was there anything that you did to help you?
So I didn't actually go to therapy until recently. I mostly was just in straight survival mode of like, how do I manage life now outside of this, outside of knowing anybody? And I think mine was is I fell in a lot of abusive relationships from that moment because of what I had witnessed is what I had known. Pardon. So I had a lot of learning curves, so to speak. And even, even trying to figure out what education or what career I wanted, like all of that, I was just looking for someone. I needed somebody to tell me what to do. I had no authority over myself because I was like, where's the person that tells me how to dress, what to wear, what to eat? No watching TV, no cutting your hair, no wearing makeup, like all of these. And then I had all this freedom too. And I was like, wait, I have all these choices. Which one do I actually choose? Which one's right? And so I think the biggest thing that I had to overcome was actually listening to myself and trusting my own intuition. And because it was fun being in charge of myself to an extent, but I was, I kept wanting somebody to tell me what to do. And especially in the beginning, I was just like, I needed that. And the structure too, because I was free to do anything. I could do anything I wanted. So I think, finally I found a healthy balance, but it took a lot of trial and error. And thankfully I'm at where I'm at. But highly suggest going to therapy because I didn't even learn about religious trauma and all of this until just recently, just a few years ago. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I feel like I've gone through this for a reason to help other people. And I'm grateful that I'm at a place where I'm at where I can. Because there's a lot of people that are probably just like me without no way of reaching to the outside world. Like, who's going to help them? And so I do feel like people who have gone through what we've gone through, like we're doing what we know we need to do to help other people, to help spread awareness even about what religious trauma is and how they can get out of whatever situations and just be a support for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally get you when you said about not being able to make a decision, right? Because you're so used to everything so controlled for you that when it is time to make a decision, you're just like, well, what do you want to do? Like
Yeah,
my poor
exactly.
husband was always like, oh my God, just make a decision. So I totally hear you on that. So what is it that you do now?
So I'm actually a seamstress, and this is what's crazy and like serendipitous. Everything comes in a full circle because I used to make my own clothes growing up, and I'm a seamstress for an upholstery company. But I actually just
Oh,
started designing clothes for
nice.
myself and for other people and it was a great way to like take my power back because when I was sewing my own clothes, I had these parameters. They had to be skirts, they had to be this length, and yada yada, and finally just recently I got a sewing machine in my apartment and I'm like, okay, well, let's just start dabbling and seeing what I can do without parameters. And I've been doing it since I was 13. So I was able to make a career out of a hobby that I had when I was younger. But this time, it feels really good this time. So kind of loving
Oh, that's
it.
so awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
Do you sell them like in online or do you have sell them in a
So
boutique or
Depop is the place that I have set up, but I just started doing it just recently. So far I've kept everything I've made. So I'll either eventually sell them or I'll start making other things for other people. But yeah, it's been enjoyable. It's been fun.
No, that's very cool. Do you have any advice for, well, I'm going to say specifically women, but people that are coming out of cults? Do you have any words of advice or wisdom for them of what their next steps should be when they get
I
out?
would say I would say immediately go to therapy, because that would have saved me a ton of trouble had I known even what therapy was, because that wasn't allowed where I went. Had I
Mhm.
known how important therapy was for you to, for self-awareness, to recognize patterns and this and that, and have an outside person. If not, if you can't afford therapy, if you don't want a therapist, find a mentor. Find someone who's gone through exactly what we've gone through or something similar and ask them what they've done, because you can learn a lot from someone who's lived that life. So I highly recommend therapist or a mentor immediately, and find a community, because you'll feel really alone for a while if you don't have any contact with anybody, but you know you've made the right choice.
Did you build a community of people and where did you find them?
So I did, surprisingly. I was able to, when I moved to Portland, I was 20. I entered the modeling community and found a ton of amazing people, just a lot of creative people, doing photo shoots and stuff and runway and all of that. And to this day, I've had, some of my best friends are still in the community 10 years later. So it's a fun way to get into it. And you can, for me now, I'm a designer, so I can maintain my friendships and maintain being around the same people. And yeah, it's been really awesome.
Oh, that's great. Your community can be really anything. So if you have a hobby or
Yeah.
if you have an activity that you like, or
Mhm.
even online, right? Like joining different Facebook groups or what have you. And with seeking therapy, did you find somebody who specialized in religious trauma or did you go to just a regular therapist?
So I actually did hypnotherapy,
Okay.
which was very, I didn't even know, because I was looking for a life coach, and I ended up connecting with a hypnotherapist. And I think that was the best thing for me, because I was able to express my emotions and my anger, which I haven't ever been able to under hypnosis versus talking through it, because I tend to bottle everything in. And
Mm-hmm.
so having that release and that way of being able to speak out was really healing for me. And so it's a very unusual, way of doing it, but hypnotherapy is what worked for me.
Okay. How long did you go to hypnotherapy for? Like how many sessions was it required to get you through this, do you think?
I think we did a few sessions on our own, and then we did an actual inner child healing therapy. I think a total of 16 or so sessions. It was a few months that I went, from start to finish, going through, my childhood, people that I was angry with, and all of that. And I was very happy to be able to connect with someone who happened to be, understanding of all of that and had knowledge of religious trauma. But I also think we were able to tackle a lot of the root issues of it, which was my childhood and my upbringing, because I had no idea. When I realized I needed to go to therapy, I didn't realize until I was told that it starts with your childhood. And I was
Mhm.
like, "Oh, okay, well, that makes so much sense, because I'm acting out in this way, in this manner and in this way." And I didn't know why. And then come to find out it's from my childhood. So we did a lot of inner child healing.
Did you have any type of hesitation with doing hypnotherapy? Because the only reason I asked that is as when I was a Jehovah's Witness, hypnotherapy would have been like the devil, right? Was that kind of taught for you too, the same way?
Yes,
So did you
absolutely.
Okay, so how did you overcome that? Because I think that's a good thing to talk about because there's people that come from these religions that are getting out and they would be scared of hypnotherapy. But I am a big believer in that too. Like I've had it done as well. I know other people that have and it is an amazing source of therapy. So, how did you get
Absolutely.
past it?
For me is I was able to disconnect what they would think the spiritual side is, and embrace the technical and scientific side of it, which is literal neurohacking, brain hacking, and all of that, which I've been invested in for, the last decade. I love learning about neurology and physiology and all of that. So For me, there wasn't really much hesitation. I was just like, oh, let's try it. Cause she asked in session, we had our therapy session, and then she's like, okay, well, would you like me to hypnotize you? And I was like, a little surprised because I didn't know that was a part of the deal. And I was like, well, why not? And then from there, when I actually started feeling the effects and started learning more about it and doing research, I was like, oh, this is legit. And if you go online, you can find people who are, very wealthy, very successful that have said, this is how I got here. It was through hypnosis. So it's pretty neat.
Yeah,
And no,
absolutely.
I don't experience, any crazy demons or anything like that after doing it. So it's not
That'll
demonic.
relieve a lot of people.
No, I think the biggest thing was encouraging whoever's trying to get out to find either professional help or seek out community or a mentor, because I think those are the biggest things that helped me eventually once I did it.
Quite recently, I read Combating Cult Mind Control by Stephen Hassan. I don't know if you've ever read that, but it's a really good book. And what does in there is it says that when you come out of a cult, it's really a great idea to do exactly what we're doing and talk to other people about it so that they can get help. Because if
Mhm.
we don't spread the information and share it, it's not helping anybody because we've been so repressed for so long. And as women, and I totally think it's mainly women, we're told
Yep.
to shut up, right?
Yep.
Don't have a voice, don't
Yep.
talk about it, keep quiet.
Yep.
So I found that really helpful in gaining a voice and being like, you know what? No, let's get some people together here and let's talk about this.
Amen. Amen.
Yeah,
And it's crazy
right?
because like the church I grew up with, like if you backtalk the church, you were never allowed back. So I am definitely excommunicated by now. I would not be allowed back. I have talked enough crap about everything that's gone on. I've spoken my truth, and I've spoken how great freedom feels and how great it feels to feel alive and to be connected to my own version of God versus whatever fear they, try to turn into some man in the sky. Like, so that's the biggest thing is after you leave, their thing was like they'd push, just don't say anything, don't say anything, don't say anything,
Mhm.
or you're going to hell. God will never forgive you. It's blasphemy, etc. And yeah, definitely
Apost
towards one.
right? And our religion referred to it was apostasy, and I would be the
Oh,
same. Anybody that talks about bad about the religion, right? Then it's exactly the same thing. They don't want that. That's for sure. Especially
yeah.
the truth being revealed of what it's actually like in there, right? Well, thank you so much for coming on today and talking about this and sharing your stories. I know some of it was not easy to talk about. And I really appreciate you sharing it with everybody so that it can be helpful to anybody that's leaving. So
Yeah,
we
I'm
really
happy to do
appreciate
it. Thank
that.
you for having me, Jada. Thank you.